Okay, cool. So I just became a team lead. Now what? Talk is scheduled around, well, becoming a team lead. First, a bit of warning. We did the roundabout just. There were a lot of team leads in the room, actually. Like, this is essentially probably the biggest group of team leads I've ever talked to. So a bit of warning here. Your mileage may vary. This is my experiences. I am not, I didn't write a book about this stuff. This is just how I interpret it. Wow. And my experience with it. So, well, let's see how it goes for you guys. First, a bit about me. Yes, that beautiful stallion is me. I'm Frederick Vanbrabant. I'm from Antwerp, Belgium, that is. You can find me on Twitter at maybe Frederick. I have a blog full of nonsense, frederickvanbrabant.com. And I'm a freelancer. I'm a keyboard for hire. You can hire me to do this stuff. Your company. I also do obviously software development, but I also do CTO for hire, team lead for hire, those kind of things. So let's dive into it, right? Let's start off with a little story. So you just got hired, maybe through Spectrum IT Jobs or any other sponsoring sponsor that sponsors this event, and you just joined your first company. So this is how it might look to you. So there's this different kind of layering system in a company, or so you assume. At the bottom, you have the junior developers who are pretty maybe new to the coding thing. Media developers, senior developers, they all get led by a team lead, and then there's a management system. So a couple of years go by, and you rise through the ranks and you become a meteor developer. Now, it's cool. You're a better developer now. You don't make the obvious mistakes. There's no more hand-holding going on, but also you're not quite at the level of senior developer. Another few years go by, and then you start to realize that software development isn't only about code. It's more about teaching. It's about communication. It's about getting your ideas across to the rest of the group. That's the point you become a senior developer. That's actually the small secret trick to becoming a senior developer. But you've been eyeing that team lead role for a while now, and then some beautiful day, it just happens, and you become team lead. Maybe the previous team lead found another job or did something else, and or maybe an extra group opened up, and you just became that team lead. Now, especially from the eyes of a junior developer, a team lead is often seen as the best developer of the group. It's the one to aspire to. It's kind of like the guru of the heap. But as soon as you start doing that role, you quickly realize that it's no longer about code. And you're also no longer part of the development team, how strange that can sound. No, you're part of the team lead group. And a team lead group, as you can see, no longer has the title developer in their title. So they're no longer developers, they're team leads. And what does a team lead do? Well, a team lead is about supporting the development team. So not development in per se, but supporting and making sure the development team can do their job as good as possible, with taking out the roadblocks on the way. So no longer technical, more soft skill based, which is a very, very important part about this process. Okay, so with that out of the way, you just became a team lead, so it's time for your first big project, right? And this is the moment to start making an impression. You just get called in with the client scoping already been done for you, and now you just had the meeting, and they told you they want to start up a project. It's a social network that communicates in cat GIFs. So only cat GIFs, think about it like Twitter, but for cats. Or the Uber of cat communication, as they like to pitch it through marketing. Okay, cool, you think? Pretty useless, but we'll take it. And they drop this number. Watch. It's 100,000 euros to build a social network for cats. The time frame is 2 months, and you think, okay, this is the perfect time, right? Just became a team lead. I have a team beneath me, next to me. Sorry, I know these people. I know they're capable, and we have a ton of money, 100,000 euros to spend for 2 months about making a Twitter clone. Sounds easy. So this is also kind of the point where you want to maybe make some changes to the way you've been working before. So this is a this is a tech stack you used to use all the time when you were still developing, and the entire company likes to use it. So for the front end, we have Vue, JS, and Blade coupled. We have a Laravel backend with some Laravel CSS kind of thingy. We have a MySQL database, and we have a Docker setup where it all runs on. And well, you've always been a bit critical, and you've always been the typical developer, and you think like, well, maybe we can make some changes, and now I'm like team lead, maybe I can push those changes. So you see that Vue.js and Blade stuff, and you think, well, maybe we can do a headless front end in React, right? It's cool. All the cool kids are doing that. And that Laravel backend, you go to a lot of meetups, you go to a lot of conferences, and you think to yourself, well, maybe we can do the ports and adapter and DDD backend kind of thing, because I've read a book about it, and it sounds complicated, so I want to do it. And MySQL, who uses MySQL anymore, right? Let's go for Postgres as a database, and that's cool. Then Docker, well, Docker, come on. Super slow. We need to scale up, right? So let's go Kubernetes. And he starts looking at that tech stack, and you think, yeah, it's a pretty nice tech stack, small project. Maybe we're a bit overkill here. It's my first project. Maybe I don't want to like go fully all in. Okay, let's not do Kubernetes. Rest is okay. Oh, only Docker. So for your team, you picked out your great team. 2 backend developers, a senior backend developer and a junior backend developer. The idea here is that the senior backend developer can teach the junior backend developer, and maybe at the end of the project in 2 months, maybe a bit fast, but who knows, this junior might become a meteor, which is pretty cool. And you've already been teaching people in your environment, which is great. You're also going to need a front-end developer. You're going to pick a meteor front-end developer. And maybe part-time DevOps if things go really bad with that Docker setup. You didn't do the Kubernetes, so you can get away with the part-time stuff, right? Okay, cool. Let's map it out because you're a good team lead and my slides just froze. Okay, let's make a roaming. We have 100,000 euros to spend. Now, this is the part where I'm normally going to do some crowd participation, but this is going to be maybe a bit difficult. So normally I ask like a senior developer, you charge your developers to your project. So you hire them out to your project and you have to scope them in. So what would be a day price to charge for a senior developer to your client? Now, these prices are all obviously fictive and in the realm of possibility. They're realistic prices in Europe, in Belgium, I must add. So we charge 660 euros a day for a senior developer. 5 times a week, 20 days a month, that's 13,200 euros times 2 months. That makes it 26,400 euros. Okay, that's a big chunk of our budget already gone. And we only have 1 developer. The junior developer, let's put it at like 550. Again, with the months, it's 1,100. 2 months, 2,200 for the junior developer. Okay, we're at the halfway mark. We still have a meteor and a DevOps part-time to go, but we can get there. Meteor, 600, 12,000, 24,000 euros. Okay, almost there. The DevOps 600, but it's only part-time, so we're only going to need him for or her for take 10 days or something. 6,000 euros. Okay, cool. Now if you, as you can see, the bar isn't filled, so you're pretty good at this stuff, right? This is your first project and you're already 23,600 euros straight up profit. You're doing great. You're doing great. Now, okay, let's skip ahead in time for a bit. The project is now underway and you're going to check in after a few days, months. Let's see. So the same bar. And let's see where we're at the end of the project. So the senior developer had to coach the junior developer into that DDD stuff we mentioned at the start. Turns out DDD is actually really, really complicated stuff. The junior developer had a lot of things on his or her plate. So, and teaching costs a lot of time. So it turned out that it took up 20% more time. Really sucks. Okay, so the senior dev work is 20% more. The junior turns out is pretty good, but still to DDD stuff, 20%. But it's okay. We had a buffer, right? We planned it out in the start. We still had a buffer, so we can manage this. The Meteor frontend developer was always really excited about working with React. On her spare time, she used to work all the time in React, so this is actually 10% less work. We made a huge win here. So 10% less for the front-end developer. Great. The DevOps work, well, DevOps is just DevOps. It's Docker setup we've used all the time. So actually we did a great job implementing and scoping that one. So still 6,000 euros. And at this point, you're really glad you didn't go for Kubernetes. Okay, so that's 23,600 euros is now 16,700 euros, and the very good job's now, okay, I guess an okay's job, but we still made a profit, right? That's great. Well, it turns out that this isn't actually profit. Turns out that you still have to account for infrastructure, offices, have a financial buffer in your company. If you deduct all those costs from those 16,700 euros, you might actually be kind of breaking even here, maybe even less, depends on the setup. So we only calculated at this point the developer costs themselves, the functional costs, not the infrastructural costs. So this is well, not really a great job we did here, but in the end, we made profit, maybe a small profit, maybe a break even, but it's your first project. Okay, so you meet up with your new team, because as we mentioned before, you're no longer a developer, you now have a new team. These are the team leads. You're the yellow one. So yeah, you're there with them and you discuss the first, your first project as a team lead. And the head of development, sorry, you're the head of development. The head of design comes to you and says, yeah, used to have it all the time. My first project was horrible. Yeah, the head of project management, yeah, we went over budget. It was huge. It was a huge, big thing. And then the more you talk to these people, the more you start to realize that as they are heads of teams, and those heads of teams also worked on that project. And it turns out that you don't have 100% control of that budget. You actually have 65% of that project, because design, marketing, project management is all part of that project. So that 16,000 euros we discussed earlier is not only for development. Turns out if you calculate it, we are now 18,300 euros in the hole, because we only included development, not design, marketing, and project management, and all those other things. So yeah, this is a small story. One of my first jobs as team lead was really connected with this. We really went really deep in the hole, thanks to my great planning. But I hope this won't happen to you in the future. So what can we take away from this story? First things first, software is really expensive. As you've seen, 100,000 euro for a small Twitter clone seems like a lot of money. In reality, it wasn't really that much, as we managed it not so great. Quality costs money. We spend a lot of money on the DDD stuff, the React front end, maybe even the Kubernetes. We spend a lot of money there, which we shouldn't have spent, because that got us overboard in the beginning. Next up is you're not an island. So if you discussed those things with the other team leads, you might very soon realize that you don't have all the budgets there. And the communication could have solved everything. If the developers or yourself communicated better, you might have seen that those 20% extra time that got into the project might have been writing on the wall. You could have stepped in earlier, or you could have made changes earlier, and a 20% delay might have been a 5% delay or something. So those are 4 things to take away from this little story, but this is only the first part. This is a slide I always like to show. Every developer in the world, not even developer, like a lot of people who spend a lot of time on the internet or do project stuff, have seen this image and chuckle away with it, because yeah, it's one of those classics, right? But the thing is, a lot of people, especially developers, kind of misunderstand this image, I feel. So there's this very smug feeling about a lot of developers that talk to a client and say, yeah, but if you want it good and fast, you can't have it cheap. And if you want it cheap and fast, you can't have it good, and those kind of things, right? But what they don't realize is that a developer always thinks everyone wants it either good and fast, or either good and cheap. A lot of clients want it just fast and cheap. They don't really care about the goods. DDD stuff, really nice, ports and adapters, really cool. React frontends, Node backends, really cool stuff, but a lot of clients don't even have the smallest clue about what that means. If I push a button, a mail needs to go out. You can write it fully TDD, BDD, whatever. I don't care, I just want the mail to go out. So that's always a thing you have to realize. You really need to expect the scope and have a great conversation with your client about what they actually want. And if they want it fast and cheap, and you can't give it good, then, well, okay, just do it fast and cheap. Also depends on the style of your corporation, obviously. So, okay, that was the first step of the talk. Next up is something is a more soft skill kind of thing. A lot of team leads responsibility is keeping the team motivated. A team only can work as good as they are motivated, which is something that really took a while for me to realize. Next up is probably the cheesiest slide you'll ever see, but I'm still proud of it. So there's this 3 pillars, it's called. Yeah, I know it looks really, really cheesy. There's this trust, honesty, and context pillars of being a team lead. It's all about the communication part. So let's dive into all of these 3 pillars one by one. First off is the trust part. Trust is all about how you interact with your team. So you have a really intelligent team. You've hired them, after all. You're working with people who are either highly educated or are smart enough to fit inside of that group. So why don't you just trust their opinions, right? They will come with great ideas, and you don't have to manage them in that regard. Just be part and support the people who are coming with these ideas, and try to maybe form it a bit, but let the ideas come from them. Which ties beautifully into the ownership part. Ownership is one of those typical agile ideas, but if you give people a small task to complete without any interference, and you just give them the responsibility and the trust to let them get on with the job, then they will take it on like a baby to nurture. They will be very proud of what they accomplish, and they will give it everything because it's their responsibility, and it's their thing, which is really an important thing, I feel. Next is the honesty part. Office politics, everybody knows office politics is horrible. You're not in a room in Senate, you're in the office. But the reality is that office politics is a huge part of every corporate environment. Try to limit it. If it's still kind of the identity of a corporate environment you're in, then it's your job as a team lead. Again, you're a supporting factor to the team. So try and shield them away from the politics. Try to maybe take it a bit upon you to solve that stuff, but try to do honest communication directly to the rest of the team. Try to separate the business side from the development side. They're having a hard time doing the technical stuff for themselves. Just act as a buffer between that stuff. Admit when you're wrong. It's one of the best skills I can ever hope you adopt, or if you already do it, is great. Honesty about saying when you're wrong. It promotes an honest culture, and honest culture is one of the most important things in leading a team. If people lie to you, you don't get the information you want. If you don't have the right information, you can't act upon it, and your team will fail. You normally have more information than they have. So if you don't get the information back, you can't make the rational decisions to steer the team maybe in a direction you want it to go. So always try to have honest communication with everyone in your team, which ties directly to you get back what you put in. If you don't act honestly towards them, you don't get honesty back. So you have to practice what you preach here. The last tier is the context. The context is a really, really important part. This is again part of the ownership part. Try and always get feedback and give feedback. So you aren't perfect. There are a lot of very smart people around you. Try to interact with them, see where you're going, see where you can adapt your direction. And people will know how to behave in a project when you have enough context. So there's this this typical story where this team always goes on a retreat, and they always go to these huge retreats like Dubai or Italy or Belgium, and they see every year upon next year they always get really excited about it, and then the year afterwards there's no retreat. So the communication just goes out to, sorry, today this year there's no retreat. If you communicate like that, then the team might start to wonder, like, why is there no retreat? Are we going broke? Are we like financially bankrupt? Should I be looking for a new job? That's not what you want to have your team thinking about, right? If you, for example, communicate it like, okay, this year there's no retreat. Why is there no retreat? Because there's this huge pandemic going on, or we forgot to book it, or something came off, or our tickets got delayed, then that's an entire different message. And that's all about context. If you give the message about why something is happening, people won't fill in the blanks. And you don't want people to fill in the blanks, because when people start filling in the blanks, you get really unexpected returns. And this isn't only about software. Actually, this is totally not about software. The other things about being honest in your codes is obviously a thing. You don't want to lie to your users. You want to give a great user experience. But this is about managing people. This is about tickets. This is about issues. This is about everything related to company stuff. Okay. These are the three pillars about that. So you can form it into a context like, could you follow this up? We kind of forgot about this part of the project. It's vital to the client because future payment modules depend on it. If you go back to the fast, cheap, and good part, if you give a developer the option to just make a project fast and cheap, if you discuss it like that, like, okay, the client wants something with a really, really small deadline, you really need to hammer it in and do it very, very, very fast and dirty and hacky. The developer won't be excited about that. Nobody's going to be excited about hacking maybe some PHP without a framework and a direct connection. Nobody will like that. Nobody will get excited and the motivation will drop. If you discuss with your team about the client really wants this, cheaply done, fast done, but if we do it this way for this project, maybe the next project that will come along, we've proven our skills, we've proven our reliability, then the next project will be a good project, expensive project with a leisurely deadline. If you discuss like that to your team, the team will take it upon them to say, okay, this is a small project, we need to hammer it out, and then the next project is going to be great and motivation won't drop as much, as long as the deadline isn't too long, of course. Okay, next part is talking to clients. This is obviously also a big part of your job now. I'm going to go a bit quicker now because we also need to cover the hiring stuff. So this is just a small survival guide talking to clients. A lot of people don't like talking to clients, but I think it's very, very related to the first part. It's because we like to talk too much. We are engineers, software engineers. We really like to talk about software. When people come to our to meeting rooms with us, they already discuss it among themselves. They know what the project is about, and they know the kind of the direction it should take. Now they're only pitching to see what the reality is from their ideas to maybe a group of experts. If they come in and they just say, oh, we want this huge website and we want this e-commerce kind of thing, and you just interrupt them and you say, okay, we're going to go Magento, blah, 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 and whatever, nobody will really open up anymore because you've taken the idea, the initiative away from them and you put it upon yourself. And at this point, you don't have enough information. So always listen to them, always interact with them in a very respectful manner. And see where the project goes. They are also intelligent people. They have gathered enough money to hire you, so they probably know what they're doing. So at least listen them out. Listen. Don't promise extra. I've seen this so many times, and I've been guilty about it a few times myself. Again, we're developers. We're really excited about what we do, and if a client comes in and talks about a search function, don't start promising like Elasticsearch and we can maybe hook it in and microservices and machine learning and all this stuff. Yeah, of course, it's really cool. It's really exciting. But the thing is, once you're talking about stuff like machine learning and artificial intelligence on the search bar, the client will be equally excited and they will expect you to implement that. And you aren't talking about price at this point because the contracts have already been signed and you're now talking about implementing machine learning while there is no price or agreements about that stuff. So if it's not scoped, it's free. And you just promised an entire machine learning course for free, which is going to cost you a lot of money. Which ties really nice to this next point. Write it down and mail it. At the end of every meeting, try and write down everything. It's better to write it down during the meeting, but after a meeting, always send meeting notes back to the client and everyone in the team who's working with it, to have everyone on the same team. If it's on paper, it exists. There's no discussion about it, and you have a paper trail. This might sound very contradictory to the previous point, where if you don't write your promises down, but the thing is, then you're going to get this disparity between client and people who you were working with. You don't want to have that disparity. You want to have the full trust on both sides. So don't promise extra, be conservative about that part, but do the writing down as well to just like block it off and be as fair as you can towards your clients. Um, and the trust, honesty, and context stuff. This might sound a bit strange. Why do you have to be the context and stuff to your clients? Well, okay, for example, the trust stuff. You don't want to sell them stuff they don't need. Okay, you're going to get a nice dollar out of this one. You can promise, if it's a small application, you can maybe promise them extra stuff to make the application bigger, to make more development work, to add more resources to the project, which you can earn some stuff. But in the end, at the end of the project, they might realize that they didn't need half of that stuff. The price was way too high, and they will never work with you again. The honesty stuff is if, for example, there's this huge legacy project they want to get you on board of, and you know your team morale is a bit not entirely there, you might burn some people out. If you're not honest to your client and to the rest of your team, where you actually can take the project on, then don't. Just be honest about that stuff. Don't force a huge project onto your developers or vice versa when there's no match there. So be honest about that stuff. You will burn people out, and when people burn out, they leave, and you have an empty company now. And the context stuff, we've talked about it in the past. Always tell both parties why you're doing stuff and give enough context so they don't make up their own minds about those things. This is the most important part. This is the most fun part. This is the most dreaded part. The hiring stuff. Hiring is, some people really love it. Some people hate it. And some people who've done it a million times are really indifferent about it. So let's start off with the big question, right? Why are brain teasers still a thing? We have this unique, unique situation in development land where you can have the highest degrees in the world. You can have 8 PhDs, but you still have to prove that you're not an idiot at every conversation you have with a hiring team, which is really frustrating. So why do we still need to do that? Why, if we have like years of experience, why do we still have to prove that we can actually bang two rocks together? Well, if you've never sat on the other side of the table, it's a safety net. It actually is. There are so many developers with huge, impressive CVs that come to those meeting rooms and they actually can't bang two rocks together. It's a sad reality. You can learn a ton about just asking very simple questions about maybe a FizzBuzz. We'll dive into that later, and see how they interact with it. If it really fails flat on their back, then you can have the most impressive CV in the world, but the team lead or the super senior developer of one company might be a very junior developer in another company. It's a really strange world there. Titles mean nothing. So what are the options here? How can I maybe explore the knowledge level a participant has, and how can I do that without like not driving them away, which is often a thing. So let's go over to some options here. We'll discuss them at the end. What I think are some good ideas, what you should maybe not, what you should implement, maybe not implement. I have a cool, very, very beautiful table about that. Going to be really impressive. Okay, so first off is FizzBuzz. I've mentioned it before. FizzBuzz is either super well known or not known at all. Again, this would be audience participation, but there is no audience participation. FizzBuzz. So let me quickly explain FizzBuzz. FizzBuzz is a really, really easy application. So you ask the person in the room to write an application that prints 1 to 100 every time it hits a multiple of 3, so 3, 6, 9, whatever. It prints fizz after the number. If it hits a multiple of 5, 5, 10, 15, it prints buzz after the number. If it's 3 and 5, so 15, for example, it prints FizzBuzz, and then it loops to 100. Sounds easy enough, I guess. I took the liberty to write it out. So next interview, you're going to ace it, just copy paste it. I'm going to be honest, I copy paste this one from the internet. I wouldn't include the slashes anymore, I think. But anyway, I've seen developers, really experienced developers get really stuck about this one because it has this, the modal operator, which is, I don't know if you can see my mouse. I have a pointer, I think. There it goes. Sorry, yeah, the modal operator, which is something you only use if you're coding a FizzBus. So there you go. So yeah, that's an option you can propose. Next up is something that was really popular in Silicon Valley a couple of years ago, and this ask very smart questions to see how the candidate thinks. And we all felt really important doing that. So a question like that would be, how many golf balls are there in New York? What the hell can you get out of a question like that? Well, the idea behind this question would be, how does the candidate think? So you just, obviously the candidate doesn't know how many golf balls there are in New York. You don't know how many golf balls there are in New York. You wouldn't hire yourself. So you just ask them to think about it. So how many people are there in New York? You don't know how many people there are. So you ask the candidate to do a wild guess and see if it's realistic. And then you build upon that one. How many percent of those people would be golfers? Okay, maybe 2%, 3%, I don't know. How many golf balls does a typical golf person carry? Okay, do people go to New York to golf? This sounds really unrelated questions to software developers, to software development. But if you take a step back, those are the kind of questions I also would like a software developer to ask themselves about projects. If I built an e-commerce website, how can people who are hard of hearing or maybe half blind interact with my website? If a person goes on and adds stuff to their cart and never checks out, what does it tell me? Does it tell me they don't have enough money, or do they just use it as some kind of favorites bar, which they never come back to? And maybe how can we maybe implement other better technologies to fill that need? That's the idea about this kind of questions. Gilded Rose. Gilded Rose, if you don't know what FizzBuzz is, chances are you don't know what Gilded Rose is. This is the most obscure one. It's one of my favorite ones. What is Gilded Rose? Gilded Rose is a small project that has two classes that interact with each other. And it's written in a really ugly way. It's like extremely legacy code, but it's small legacy code. It's a few hundred lines, two classes, few hundred lines. One, I think one class is 30 lines, the other is a few hundred lines, and it does a lot of business logic. And it's written like horribly. And you ask your candidate to take it home and refactor it and just give it back. It's also, the cool thing about it is it included with a ton of tests. So you can run the test suite. The test suite is really good. And it just, so you have the fallback. So you just ask your candidates to implement code review, a refactoring, and then see how the person thinks. So I didn't come up with it. I don't think Emily Bash came up with it. I just found her GitHub profile, and she has this this link, this on screen. It's Gilded Rose in a bunch of languages: PHP, a couple of versions of PHP, Java, Go, Python, Ruby, you name it, you'll find it there. So if you're not a PHP developer, you can maybe look at this one. Next up is show us some open source work. This is a classic, right? Just show us your hobbies. And I think it's a strange one, to be honest. It expects everyone to always be working on side projects, hobby projects. If you're just a developer who likes to work in a normal pace, in a normal fashion, 9 to 5, there's nothing wrong with that stuff. So you don't have any open source work, that might be a blame in this situation. I don't think you should select people on their extracurricular activities. The other part of that one is create a PR to some open source work. Um, yeah, that's, I think, a much more honest one. You can ask people to make PR, then you can see how they work with PRs, which open source projects they choose, and how to interact with the rest of the community. So that's an option. This is a controversial one. Talk to them like a human being. Um, yeah, just sit them down and do a technical discussion with them. See what ticks, what blogs do you read, what technology do you like, do you know design patterns? If so, what kind of design patterns do you like, which you don't like? This is not the same as tell me how an internet connection works from point A to point B, and I'm going to deduct every point you don't take. That's not that one. That's not talking like a human being. Talking like a human being is, okay, tell me about the latest blog post you read about something technical. What do you think about it? And not score them, just have a conversation, see what they're interested in. So these are the options. Now over to the cool table I made. Yeah, that's a table I made. So these are the options, right? The FizzBus, I ranked them, as you can see. I have 3 dots. I have from gray to orange to green. And the labels, which I didn't label, but made an icon, so it's less user experience wise, is technical they are, how great community or social they are, and their growth pattern for the future. This is what you can achieve with maybe asking these tests. So FizzBus, you only learn the basics. You learn that they can do a loop. You learn that they know the modulator, and that they can do some basic if-else structures. So you get the basics. Okay, you can filter out people who don't know that, but also you're going to filter out a ton of people who can't do these things under pressure. If you ask them to do it on a whiteboard without a computer, you're going to lose 80% of your candidates, and the 20% you're going to keep. I don't know what did you just prove? You just dropped 80% of your potential people. So I wouldn't go for the FizzBus. Maybe if you're really in a pinch, go for a FizzBus. And if you ask for a FizzBus, make sure that the candidate is really relaxed when doing that, and don't ever do it on a whiteboard. Do it on a computer. It would be best on their own computer. How many golf balls? So the really smart questions. Upside is you look really smart when you ask them. So you can see how the person ticks bits. But again, these are some very, very high-end questions. If you want to ask it to maybe an internet architect or software architect, these would be an okay question, I guess. A software architect, if he's just going to, or the person is just going to do, I don't know, bash scripting. I don't know if you're going to like really learn a ton about the person. The Gilded Rose is a lot better, I think. Gilded Rose gives a deep understanding about the technology they like to use. Do they include packages? Which packages do they use? Do they go a DDD route? Do they maybe go a BDD route? No, that's all in there. But just see how they refactor stuff. Do they use value objects? Do they maybe make some kind of command bus extreme kind of thing? And you also can see the growth potential, where they're at their experience. When I was a junior developer, I would refactor Gilded Rose totally different than I would do it today. So you can kind of guess where they are in their trajectory. And you can also have a great conversation afterwards, because now you can say, like, why didn't you use, for example, value objects? Why did you use a switch and not early returns? Stuff like that. And if they can answer it, it's super good. If not, you can teach them. So show some open source work. We've discussed it earlier. What if they don't have any? The upside here, if they have it, you can look at their PRs. You can maybe see how they interact with the rest of the community. You can see how they communicate, which is really important because software is all about communication. You can see obviously very good their technical level, because you're looking at their code. And the growth potential, again, you're looking at their code and you can see where they're at. If they have a very popular open source project, chances are they're probably kind of good developers, right? Make a PR. Has the extra bonus where you can see what projects they like. If they've never worked with open source software before and you ask them to make a PR to something, it's really interesting to see which projects they go for. If they go for example, Doctrine, you know, they're really interested in like maybe the setup of ORMs and databases. If they go for something really obscure, well, then you know where their ideas lie a bit. The actual conversation, I think it's actually the best way to check with people there. You see what they move, what blog posts they read, what videos or whatever they're interested in, like what kind of person they actually are and how they look at development in the bigger picture. The big downside here is I've had conversations with people who were really impressive. Like they were like a dictionary of technical terms and great ideas. And then the moment you don't actually check any of it, you just had the conversation, and then they fit into the team, and then everything just falls apart. That happens. That's a really thing that can happen. But then again, well, maybe you can combine them, and that's what I like to use these days. I like to combine the Gilded Rose with an actual conversation. I mostly just do the actual conversation. If I'm still a bit on the edge, I'm going to give Gilded Rose. That's my personal way of doing it, but there's obviously a lot of different ideas there. Again, I'm still here with my ugly slide. The trust, honesty, and context parts, really, really important stuff. Yeah, if you give take home exercise, for example, you're just going to trust them that they're going to do it themselves. You can give them a time limit, you can ask them to record it, but why? Just give the trust there. If it's just a person, okay, it's not a person you know, at this point, you've maybe talked to them half an hour, but that's not the way you want to present your company, I feel. Just if you give them a Gilded Rose, don't ask them to do it in the next room. Just do it like, take it home, give it back when it's done, and then we'll discuss it later. If they return with a great solution to Gilded Rose, for example, then you sit down with them and then they can't explain anything what's happening there, then you know they didn't make it themselves, or they copy paste something from the internet or something, and then then don't hire them. But if I would always go for the trust and just take it home, do it in your own time, just relax, don't stress about it too much. The honesty is, don't hire people you can't fit in your team. I've had in the past, I've hired a few people who were really bad matches for the team, but were great developers for other teams, which would fit great in other teams, but for the current team would be a very bad match. I made a bad call of implementing them in the current team to hope and make them fit in, but in the end, they didn't stick around. Then you lost a lot of money because a few months later, they're gone, and you spend a lot of money on integrating them in a team and doing the entire onboarding stuff. And the context also, don't hire people for jobs they can't or won't want to do. If you can lie to them and tell them they have the incredible stacks and incredible software stuff, but in the end, if they're just going to make CRUD software or jQuery plugins, or I don't know, then they're also not going to stay. Okay, these are my tips about becoming a team lead. There's obviously tons more to cover, but I only have so much time, obviously. Quickly, before we go over to questions, I have to give credits to a lot of things I took away from these presentation, a lot of graphics and stuff. So these are the credits, sorry. And I'm very open for any questions. And if you don't like to ask them here, you can always reach me on my Twitter account. I'll always answer. Maybe Frederick. Thank you.